Kia ora everyone, thanks for joining us today. We'll just wait while a few more people come in, but a little bit of housekeeping just while we are waiting for those to join us. I have Toby and Luke with me here today, and we're going to be talking about navigating the GDSR application process, which hopefully you will all be getting involved with very, very soon. We will be answering questions at the end, but throughout the presentation, if you'd like to note your questions down in the chat, please feel free to do that as we go. We are recording this session, so please, if you do not want your face associated with this recording, keep your camera off. And you can also change your name if you really require to do that as well. So this recording will be made available through NZGDA and NZ On Air at the end of this week, early next week. And with that, I think we'll finish saying hello to everybody and hand over to you, Toby.
Well, kia ora everyone, tēnā tātou katoa, and a very warm welcome to our webinar on the GDSR application process today. This is especially designed for those of you who've already registered for the GDSR in the 2026 round or the following. In our Carrera today, we'll be guiding you step by step through the full application form, including the game details and financial details templates that will be required as attachments to that form. As Joy said, if you have any questions as we go, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll have time at the end for the Q&A. And those watching online, you'll be able to ask us anything at the Games Rebate email inbox, which we'll share at the end. But now, let's do some quick introductions so you know who's on the call with you today. So, at NZ On Air, in the GDSR team, with us we've got Luke, the NZ On Air Management Accountant, and myself, your GDSR Program Manager. Our Program Director, Chantel Cole, isn't able to be here with us today, and she sends her apologies. But we're here to help guide you through the process and answer any questions as they come up. Let's dive in and take a closer look at the application form. I will step out of the slides now and walk us through the live demo, which we always know can be a little more exciting. So, starting us out on the NZ On Air website, you can find the Game Development Sector Rebate section in the funding part up here. And you find your way to the NZ On Air portal by clicking the red Register or Apply Here button. Most of you will already have this down as you would have sent your registration through. Clicking that button brings us straight to the new application page where you'll see already the Game Development Sector Rebate application. This will be made available to all of you at the 1st of April. I've got early access through the back end. So before we dive into the actual form, you can also see the My Application section up top where you will see your draft applications show up. That's once we create a new one, we will see that up here. This is one that I created yesterday to test the settings. So starting with a new application, we will give this a name. In this case, the 2026 GDSR Webinar Game Studio Part 2. And then we can hit Create at the bottom right. This will formally create your draft in the system, and it will then show up on My Applications for you and anyone who's also part of your company in the portal. And then we are here on the form. You'll see the navigation page or section on the left. A new addition or a new setting to the form this year is that you can freely click through here. It will no longer ask you to fill in the required questions page by page. You can actually click through the whole application freely, go back and forth. Just keep in mind to hit Save as Draft when you change pages or you click on any links, especially if you open them in the same tab, as you could lose progress. So what do we see on our welcome page? We have the information for all the documents that we'll need to attach. You've got a direct link to the GDSR guidelines, which are very helpful to have open as you fill in your application. And then we have the financial details template together with your profit and loss statement, balance sheet, payroll summary report, and a depreciation schedule. Some of these can be added to the financial template, which Luke will walk us through in a little bit. And two of them, the balance sheet and depreciation schedule, will have to be attached at all times. And finally, we have the game details template where you can let us know a bit more information about your game so that we can make sure it is eligible. And then we can go from there. Now, the other thing on the first page is our confidentiality notice. All information you submit to us through the application is deemed commercially sensitive and will be handled strictly confidentially. So do not be worried. Any reporting we do goes to the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, or MB, but all of that information will be aggregated and anonymized as we send that through. The only things that will actually be shared with MB will be your total rebate amount and the full-time equivalency, or how many people work at your studio. There's also a link to the NZ on-air privacy policy if you want some more information, and we have the Games Rebate email address here where you can reach out to us at any time for any questions or help that you might need. And then we can dive in to the actual form. Step 1, financial information. This is for the accountants among you, and it's actually a pretty straightforward one. Things to point out is just all information, please give us in New Zealand dollars. And so basically convert anything that is other currencies. And a call out that 20% of GDSR recipients will be randomly selected for audit each year. We'll talk a little more about that towards the end of this form, but just something to keep in mind for accountability so we can make sure taxpayer dollars are used diligently. So in the actual form, we just have a question around your total eligible expenditure. The minimum is 250K per financial year. So please just let us know here. And then we have a box to upload the documentation. So this is for your financial details template, balance sheet, payroll summary, which you could add to the template itself or attach as a document, and the depreciation schedule. Again, Luke will have a bit of a closer look with us into the financial details template. Then we'll need to know if any of your games are being developed for a client. And you'll notice if you click yes here, it will pop up with a couple more questions because we'll need to know if your client also applies for the GDSR. So that's specific to any other studios or clients you work with in New Zealand. And if they do, we encourage you to have a conversation with them as well, just to understand who claims for which parts of your project in the GDSR, as we cannot accept funding for the same piece of work twice. So one studio may be doing a prototype and the other studio may be doing production. It's always worth to have that conversation. Now, the other crucial thing we need to know here is if your client has received government funding for this product. Even if they are not a government entity, if they've received code, NZTE, or any other funding or grants of that type, and they're using that grant money to essentially pay you as a contractor or a client, that would also constitute double dipping, which New Zealand has a strict no double dipping rule. If there's more than one fund, you can always add a new line here or remove that. As you'll note, this question is optional. If there's nothing, you can leave that blank. And then just a section if there's anything else you want us to know, if there's anything specific with the documentation you've attached or anything you're unsure of, let us know here. Otherwise, we can go along. And then we just have a couple of questions for statistics purposes. One is your total revenue before tax for the financial year, 1st of April 25 to 31st of March 26, which is the eligibility timeframe for the GDSR. And then what percentage of that total revenue was from domestic sources in New Zealand. And that concludes our financial section. So again, remember to hit Save Draft before you do most other things, and then we can move on to the next page. Step number 2 is the game development information. Here we start with a tab to upload your game details template, which we'll also take a look at later in the webinar. And then we have a few questions or declarations that we need to know from you to make sure that the games you're applying with are eligible as per the GDSR policy. The first one here is that games need to be available for general public access or general public release, which is typically on your storefronts, say Steam, Epic Games Store, that sort of thing. Where that becomes more difficult is if you have a specific client that you're building something for that will where that game will only be used by them. So something to look into, and let us know if you have anything like that. Next, we have loot boxes. They need to be declared if your game or any of your games has any loot boxes involved. Please let us know how these loot boxes function, whether they're just cosmetic, gameplay enhancing, gacha, or tradable. It's typically only a problem for your application if there's real money winnings involved in this, whether that's cryptocurrency or anything that has a real value in the real world. But again, for statistics, we'd like to know how your loot boxes work if you have any. Next are just a few more declarations. One to let us know whether there's gambling mechanics involved in your games. Again, especially with that chance for real money winnings. And if there's any pornographic material in your games as well, we'll need to be aware of. Further, any games that are primarily designed for advertising purposes or to promote a commercial product will not be eligible for the GDSR. So again, please do let us know. In the normal case, you'll be able to hit no for all of these and move along. Then we have additional information again, where we have the questions around whether your company has released a game before, and if so, how many games have you released in the last financial year? And finally, if your studio or games have received any awards in the last year, we'd like to know, as we want to celebrate with you. So please let us know in there. And this is a long text box, so you can keep stringing along if you had many. That's the end of our games detail section. All right. Step 3, what I sometimes call the final step, but there's one more after this, step 4, as you see on the left. Step 3 is for your business representative. And we'd really ask, even if you will probably have your accountant fill in the application itself, please do take the time to take these 3 questions in here and pass them on to your business representative. You can paste their answers in here, as this page really helps us engage with the industry throughout the coming year, as well as our government allies, including MB, when we look at the policy and where to go from here. So the questions in here are, how do you plan to use the rebate funds? And that just really helps us in gauging the success of the rebate and what it's really being used for. Second up, we have what are the biggest challenges currently impacting your company and your ability to grow and succeed. So this is a chance for you to tell us if there's any financial, talent-related, regulatory, or market-driven factors that inhibit your growth at the moment, and we could see altogether how we can alleviate that. And finally, if you see any gaps or missed opportunities in the New Zealand industry as a whole. Again, please let us know your thoughts. Again, I'll call out save as draft. Can't save too often. Any traditional gamers among us will know that feeling if you haven't saved and you lose your progress. So yeah, don't fall into that trap. And then finally, we have step 4. This is the main declaration in here that we'll step through step by step. So when submitting your application, you'll have to confirm that all of these are true and or accepted. So first up, you've read, understood, and agreed to the GDSR guidelines. Again, that's where the specifics on eligible expenditure are laid out. That's really useful as part of your application process. And the terms of trade, which outline a little more around how the rebate will be paid out, any requirements that are related to that. All information and documentation provided is accurate, honest, and complete. Please do let us know everything that's there, or if you have any concerns or anything you're unsure of. Submitting an application on under the GDSR does not guarantee approval because, again, we will be assessing your games and your financials and confirm the final amount at the end of that process, which will be around July of this year. All expenditure must be in New Zealand dollars. And your application may be randomly selected for audit after receiving the funds. So again, this is an audit not of your whole company, but of the application materials. So we would be looking at invoices for the expenditure you've submitted and employment agreements to make sure that things are okay there. Upon receiving rebate funds, there's also a requirement for accreditation, which means adding a logo to your website, any game microsites you might have, and within the game itself. There's guidelines in here. When it comes to within the game, you have quite a lot of creative freedom. Typically, it might sit in your credits or the options menu, but you could add it anywhere that makes sense. And if you are a co-developing studio or a client of a studio, we'd like you to have that conversation with the owners of the game and see if that accreditation can be given. If you're not accredited yourself, that's unlikely, and we'll understand that. But again, we'd like to try, as this really helps raise the New Zealand industry's standing and image internationally, as well as make your studio more interesting for potential investors and partners. We're already seeing that in action as international partners are starting to plan more trips to New Zealand to meet with studios and look for funding opportunities. Finally, the GDSR is capped at 40 million per year. If we get close to reaching that, or if we were to reach that, any payouts would be prorated. But this year we don't foresee that happening, so that should be all good. Once you're happy with that, hit yes, and then you can submit your application. And so this is the point where it will now check if I have answered all the required questions, which I have not. So it will always remind you if anything is still missing when you hit submit. And that completes our application form. Again, any questions, put them in the chat and we'll revisit them. And I will hand over to Luke for the financial details template.
Awesome. Thanks, Toby. So there's two key documents I'm going to be talking about today. The first is the GDSR guidelines, which I'll quickly say a few things about, and then we'll get into the financial details template. So the way I kind of see it with the GDSR is the GDSR guidelines will tell you or indicate to you what is your eligible cost. So it's really good if you have that open whilst you're filling in your financial financial details template. So it's important that you understand the difference between what are eligible and ineligible costs. These are on pages 8 and 9 of the guidelines. So yeah, like I said, have that open while you're filling in your template. Rather than go through every detail and eligibility costs here, I would say the main sections you need to consider is expenses for core game development activities, subscriptions, travel to game conferences, hosting services, and your employee and contractor expenses, as well as depreciation for game production software and hardware. And we're hoping that the financial template will reflect this. So also, an easy way to think about what is eligible is by what is not eligible. So things that are ineligible is expenditure on general business overheads, such as admin, insurance, HR, legal, general auditing, and rent. Any employees or contractors who are not domiciled in NZ. Also, any costs for which another business is already claimed in the GDSR, and any other depreciation costs. So now we have a bit of an understanding. I'm going to jump into the financial details template here. So while I go through this, please note that anything highlighted in yellow is a change or an addition from last year's template. So our first page is the summary page. So this is just a summary that pulls from the rest of the sheet. And note the total cost should match your P&L amounts. So this total cost column here. So please try and sort your expenditure to the sections provided if that's possible. Also, just to know, I'm going to step through this quite quickly because there's quite a lot to get through. So the next tab we have is our company structure. That's pretty self-explanatory. Any parent company or subsidiary, the structure around that. The next is your project eligibility, which will be fed in again from your games details template. So please highlight if there is any ineligible games in here and which games you're working on. The next tab is the profit and loss tab. So this is just a place where you can paste your profit and loss for the period. And then our next tab is the other government funding. So as Toby alluded to earlier, there's a strict no double dipping policy. So we need you to include any other government funding received here. Like always, if you're not sure if it's relevant, I would say just add it in and the assessors can either get in touch or make a call on what's relevant and what's not. The next is the total expense data tab. So this is an area for you to upload your raw or exported data from your accounting system. And this is for you to edit and is not assessed as such, but is more for you to be used, for us to use to reconcile the amounts that are stated on the next tab, which is a key part of the assessment, and that is the eligible expense calculation. So this is where we get into the real meat of the financial template. First change we have here is, you'll see this here, we've asked for you to include your accounting basis. So this is either incurred or paid, or essentially accrual or cash accounting for all the financial people here. For software costs, so we've got a few different items here. We've got consulting, legal, hosting services, software subscriptions, travel, ACC levies, and any other costs. These are all costs that should be directly related to game development activities. And for your software costs, can we please include the period for which your subscription covers? So if these are a year or multi-year subscriptions and you use incurred accounting, please include the amount that relates to the GDSR period. So the amount of that subscription that falls between the 1st of April 2025 till the 31st of March 2026. And you'll see along here, there's a lot of sections around the description, departments that use it, how's the item used, any claimable percentage, and comments. So please utilize these sections as much as you can. It helps us a lot with reporting and it helps us to reduce the amount of times we have to come back to you. The next piece is the total employee data. This is similar to the total expense data, a place for you to put your payroll information and for you to manipulate the data into how it works for you, so that when you come to this employee and contractor calculation, we can understand how you've got to these amounts. So this section is for all your salary or wages expenses. Also, this year, please note we have added a section to capture the amount of salary that is paid during the GDSR period. And we've got a line to accrue any amount of salary that was paid in the GDSR period, but covers any time outside of the period. So for example, if you use accrual accounting and your pay run is bi-weekly, you may have a payment that covers at the start of April 2025, that would cover 1 week within the GDSR period and maybe 1 week that's outside of the GDSR period. So in that case, we just ask that you would accrue the amount that only relates to the GDSR period. So any amount from the 1st of April 25 to the 31st of March 26. We've also asked this year that you provide the names, the employee names in this area here. This actually makes our job a lot easier, and all of this information will be treated as private and confidential. And we will also be asking for your payroll report to be uploaded with your application. So that's going to help with our reconciliation process as well. Another item here, this KiwiSaver employer contribution, this is only to be filled in if you if this is separate to your payroll and wages area. Some people have it separated out, some people include it in the full amount. As long as that's reflected there, that's fine. Bonuses, benefits, and training. These are all eligible items if it is stipulated in employee agreements that these items are available to employees should the company choose to offer it. So that's one item that was a bit of an issue for some people last year. It's just a matter of, it doesn't necessarily have to say every year you are going to get a benefit, but just that it is a potential possibility that you can receive benefits in the remuneration package. Our next tab is depreciation. So just a reminder that only depreciation costs that are directly related to game development are eligible. So this includes any hardware and software depreciation used in game development. The only other depreciation costs you can include is low value assets. Now, low value assets expensed in the year are not actually eligible unless they are directly related to game development activities and they are included in your depreciation schedule. Some companies may find that adding all of these items to a depreciation schedule only to be expensed after 1 year may be more time than it's worth, but the option is there for you. And obviously, we will require your depreciation schedule as part of the assessment to check this against. And our final tab, this is a new one we've added in for this year. This is an optional tab. This is for those of you who are using the incurred or accrual basis. And if you accrue your annual leave separately to your salary expense calculation in the previous tabs, so you can capture your any movement in annual leave here. So yeah, quick run through. If you have any questions about this, please get in touch with either myself or the rebates inbox. We're always happy to help with the applications. And yeah, once the application's open, you don't have to wait till the 31st of March. You can start filling these in and editing it out and adding as you go. A final point is the financial information you include in this can be like management accounts. It doesn't all have to be audited information. So yeah, again, any questions, let us know. And with that, I'll hand it back to Toby to run through the rest of the games template.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke.
Cool.
Bring up the share over here. So the final part of our webinar today is the game project details template, or the game details template, where we will ask you for a bit of information on the games you're applying with. You'll see here it's fairly straightforward with a few columns with one row for each of your games that you submit. There's quite a few examples in here already in terms of how much information will be useful. So please try to match that level of detail, as this is the primary source for us to verify whether what you're submitting is an eligible game or not. For released games, we can, of course, have a look at what is already out there, what's on Steam and so on. But again, this is the primary source that we use to sort of justify any decisions that we make from here. So to step us through, we start out with the name, what the development status is. You can let us know whether it's shelved, released, in production, early access, any of those common states will be good. A new addition this year is the release date. Again, for an already released game, you'll know that very well. For future games, we'd like to know the closest date you can give, or any release windows that you might have, or even just a release year if it's a few years out. Because that way, again, we can gauge where this game is at in its development cycle, what kind of information we could ask for. But also it allows us to support you even better when you get closer to launch. We like to share the good news stories of the games industry. And so this is another way of being able to stay in touch with you and support you through that. Then we get to this section, these few columns, the main ones around your game for your genre, the game log line, a gameplay overview, and a description of that game. in these, please let us know what the gameplay loop is like, if there's progression mechanics involved, and if the player has an impact on the outcome of your games. These are essentially three of the main areas that we sort of look at assessing and confirming whether this is a game versus a digital experience or a linear experience and that sort of thing. There's more writing to this in the GDSR guidelines in the eligible game section, if you're ever in doubt whether your game is eligible. But you can also let us know or reach out to us at the Games Rebate at any point if you're unsure, and we're happy to give you some pointers or an early look at what we've got. From here, and after covering the game itself, we get into more of the statistical information. Again, some of this helps us in assessment. Some of this are things that we gather statistics for and share with MB or report to MB. One is around whether your game has New Zealand elements within it. This could be voice actors that have a New Zealand accent. It could be flora and fauna, any local music you're using, any voices, local history, any of that stuff. We'd really like to know, as that again can help highlight the cultural good that we're bringing to New Zealand through games as well. Let us know if your game is domestic or international release, what engines there are, what platforms it releases. If this is a future game or a prototype that you're not sure, let us know the closest approximation of what you think it will be. But again, you feel free to leave us a comment and let us know what is unsure. The total accumulated development team members during the last financial year. This is the number of team members that have worked at any time within that financial year on this game. So let us know how many people have worked on it. Is this work being performed on behalf of a client? Again, we'll need to know on a specific to the game basis whether it is, and if it is, which studio are you collaborating with, and what is their contribution to this project. Let us know if this is New Zealand owned IP, whether you own the license to the IP essentially, or whether you're working with an international IP holder. Is this game generating revenue? How is it funded? Is it client funded, self-funded, publisher funded, any of those? Please let us know. Monetization model is also really useful, and the dates this game has been active in. Again, if this game is still out, or in this example here, we have a shelved product that was shelved in 2024, which wouldn't be part of this year's financial year anymore. But the example snuck in. So there we are. And any comments? If you have theme pages, websites, any public information, YouTube videos that we can already access, feel free to drop them into the comments, as that makes our life easier as well. And that way we can make sure we use the sources that you endorse as well to evaluate your game. And that completes the game details template as well. So at this stage, we will open up for questions. I will go back and share the slide. Again, if you're watching online, if you have any questions, let us know on the Games Rebates inbox. So thank you.
Excellent. Once again, thanks so much, Toby. Thanks, Luke. And just to reiterate, remember to hit save as you change your page if you do not get a prompt. And you can always reach out to the GDSR team through the email inbox that's on your screen. Ka kite anō. Thank you for attending.